Picture a video store clerk in 1990s Los Angeles, surviving on residual checks from a Golden Girls episode where he played an Elvis impersonator. Now, picture that same person commanding $100 million budgets and A-list superstars begging for supporting roles. This is not a feel-good Hollywood fairy tale. It is a brutal, chaotic, and occasionally catastrophic three-decade experiment in box office dominance. One of these films made back 26 times its budget. Another was so devastating to its director that he publicly called it the worst thing he ever created. And one legendary production saw its star accidentally slice his hand open on camera, keep acting through the blood, and earn a standing ovation from the crew. From scrappy indie breakthroughs to franchise-free blockbusters, here is every Quentin Tarantino film ranked by commercial success, and the one spectacular disaster that almost broke him. Reservoir Dogs was not supposed to exist at all. It was supposed to be a guerrilla production filmed on 16mm black and white stock with a budget of $30,000 scraped together from television residuals. Then Harvey Keitel read the script overnight and everything changed. Tarantino had written a heist film where you never see the heist. The story unfolds entirely in warehouse aftermath, following color-coded criminals turning on each other after a diamond robbery goes catastrophically wrong. Keitel attached himself as both star and producer, and the budget jumped to $1.2 million. New York casting sessions brought in Tim Roth, Steve Buscemi, and Michael Madsen. Principal photography lasted 5 weeks in summer 1991. The Sundance premiere in January 1992 caused walkouts. Cannes screenings triggered the same reaction. The British Board of Film Classification refused to certify it for home video, delaying the UK release until 1995. During that ban period, theatrical re-releases in Britain grossed more than double the American total. The final box office tally was approximately $2.9 million worldwide against that $1.2 million budget, borderline by traditional standards. But the real fortune was made on home video, where Reservoir Dogs became one of the defining cult phenomena of the decade. But that modest theatrical gross was just the beginning of Tarantino's commercial journey. Jackie Brown came with impossible expectations. After Reservoir Dogs launched a phenomenon and Pulp Fiction conquered the world, Tarantino's third film was supposed to be The Coronation. Instead, it opened against the highest-grossing movie of all time. This was Tarantino's only adaptation, based on Elmore Leonard's novel Rum Punch. He changed the protagonist from a white woman to Pam Grier, renaming the character as a tribute to her 1974 blaxploitation classic Foxy Brown. The cast was stacked. Samuel L. Jackson, Robert De Niro, Bridget Fonda, Michael Keaton, and Robert Forster in a career-resurrecting turn that earned him a Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination. Christmas Day, 1997 screenings were oversold, but audiences expecting Pulp Fiction 2.0 were blindsided by a deliberately paced, character-driven crime film with minimal bloodshed and a 2.5-hour runtime. The crowd expecting fireworks got meditation. Contemporary reviews described oversold theaters emptying out by the midpoint. The competition was brutal. Jackie Brown opened the same day as Titanic, which would become the first film to cross $1 billion worldwide. The final gross was $74.7 million worldwide against a $12 million budget, profitable by any reasonable measure, returning more than 6 times its cost. But the Metacritic score of 64 was Tarantino's lowest. Spike Lee publicly criticized the extensive use of racial slurs, beginning a feud that would reignite 15 years later. And the cultural conversation shifted. Was Tarantino a one-trick pony who got lucky twice? The answer would take 6 years to arrive, and it would come with a sword. Kill Bill Volume 2 was supposed to be the second half of an experience, not a standalone film, but Harvey Weinstein saw opportunity where others saw logistics, and a 4-hour revenge epic became 2 separate theatrical releases 6 months apart. Tarantino and Uma Thurman had conceived The Bride during Pulp Fiction's production. He spent 18 months writing a screenplay that ran over 4 hours on screen. When Weinstein suggested splitting it, Tarantino embraced the idea. Volume 2 picked up the story with the bride hunting down the remaining members of her former assassination squad, including David Carradine as the titular Bill. The tone shifted from Volume 1's martial arts pyrotechnics to something slower, more emotional, and unexpectedly tender. The gamble paid off. Volume 2 opened to $25.1 million, actually exceeding Volume 1's debut. It became Miramax's largest opening from its own label. Female audiences represented 40% of ticket buyers, drawn by the bride's emotional arc rather than just the action spectacle. The final worldwide gross reached $152.2 million against an estimated $30 million budget. Combined with Volume 1, the Kill Bill experiment generated $333 million worldwide on roughly $55 million in production costs. The split had essentially doubled the revenue while barely increasing expenses. But the production had a dark undercurrent that would not surface for over a decade. Uma Thurman sustained permanent neck and knee injuries from a car stunt during filming, a revelation that became significant during the industry reckoning that began in 2017. Volume 2 proved Tarantino could sustain an audience across 2 films. The next entry would test whether he could sustain them through a blizzard. The Hateful Eight should never have been made. In January 2014, an early script draft leaked online. Tarantino was devastated. He abandoned the production entirely, declared he would publish it as a novel instead, and pursued legal action against those who distributed the leak. Then he changed his mind. A live script reading at a Los Angeles theater drew such enthusiastic response that Tarantino reversed course, substantially rewrote the screenplay, and committed to the most ambitious theatrical presentation of his career. The film trapped 8 strangers in a single Wyoming haberdashery during a blizzard, where paranoia, racial tension, and hidden agendas collide in confined space. Samuel L. Jackson led the ensemble alongside Kurt Russell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Walton Goggins, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Bruce Dern, and Channing Tatum. Tarantino shot on 65mm Ultra Panavision 70 at an extremely wide aspect ratio. He arranged for approximately 100 theaters worldwide to be retrofitted with 70mm projectors. The roadshow version ran 187 minutes with an overture, intermission, and exclusive footage. Ennio Morricone composed the original score, his only competitive Oscar win after 5 prior nominations. Jennifer Jason Leigh earned a Best Supporting Actress nomination. The problem was timing. The Hateful Eight went wide December 30th, 2015. Star Wars: The Force Awakens had opened December 18th and was grossing $90 million in its 3rd weekend alone. The final tally was $161.2 million worldwide against a disputed budget of $44 to $62 million. A modest underperformer, this was also Tarantino's final collaboration with the Weinstein Company. Kill Bill Volume 1 announced Tarantino's return with the subtlety of a samurai's sword through a crowded Tokyo nightclub. After 6 years away from directing, he came back with perhaps the most visually audacious film of his career. Uma Thurman starred as the bride, a former assassin who awakens from a 4-year coma to discover her unborn child is gone and her wedding party has been massacred. She compiles a list of 5 targets. Volume 1 follows her pursuit of 2, Vernita Green and O-Ren Ishii, the latter played by Lucy Liu, as the head of the Tokyo underworld. The Crazy 88 sequence depicting the bride's assault on O-Ren's headquarters was shot in silhouette to secure an R rating instead of NC-17. The production drew from every corner of exploitation cinema history. Fight choreographer Yuen Wu Ping came from The Matrix and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Production IG created an anime sequence explaining O-Ren's backstory. Sonny Chiba appeared as legendary swordmaker Hattori Hanzo. Tarantino was not just paying homage to his influences. He was raiding their warehouses. Volume 1 opened to $22.2 million and topped the box office. The worldwide gross reached $180.9 million against a $30 million budget, a clean 6 times return. Critics embraced it as a virtuoso display of style. The combined Kill Bill experiment remains unique. 2 films, 1 story, $333 million total. Pulp Fiction should have been a warning sign for Hollywood. Instead, it became the template that countless imitators tried and failed to replicate for the next decade. TriStar was originally attached to distribute. They dropped the project because John Travolta's character was a heroin user. Miramax picked it up for a budget of $8 million. The Hollywood Reporter predicted failure. Don't expect John Q. Public to smack down dough for this spray of ammo, torture, old tunes, and new noise. The Cannes premiere in May 1994 was a calculated offensive. Harvey Weinstein brought the entire cast. The jury, presided over by Clint Eastwood, was expected to award 3 colors, red. When it became clear neither that film nor Pulp Fiction had won subsidiary prizes, Tarantino realized what was happening. The Palme d'Or went to a film about Los Angeles hitmen discussing quarter pounders with cheese. John Travolta accepted somewhere between $100,000 and $140,000 for the role of Vincent Vega. His career had cratered since the mid-1980s. His Oscar nomination was an industry earthquake. Michael Madsen was originally meant to play Vincent, connecting to his Reservoir Dogs character, but chose Wyatt Earp instead. Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, Harvey Keitel, Christopher Walken, and Tim Roth rounded out an ensemble that would define 1990s cinema. The worldwide gross reached $214 million. On an $8 million budget, that represents a return of nearly 27 times the investment. Pulp Fiction lost Best Picture to Forrest Gump, but as one retrospective noted, Forrest Gump won the battle. Pulp Fiction won the war. It was preserved in the National Film Registry in 2013, and it proved that independent cinema could compete with studio tentpoles. Inglourious Basterds spent a decade in development hell because Tarantino believed one of his own characters was unplayable. Then Christoph Waltz walked into an audition and gave him his movie. The screenplay had gestated since the late 1990s. The role of SS Colonel Hans Landa required an actor fluent in German, French, English, and Italian, capable of shifting languages mid-sentence while maintaining terrifying charm. Leonardo DiCaprio was considered before Tarantino decided it required a native German speaker. When Waltz delivered his audition, Tarantino called it a miracle. The film interweaves two plots to end Nazi leadership during a Paris film premiere in 1944. Brad Pitt leads a squad of Jewish-American soldiers collecting scalps across occupied France. Melanie Laurent plays a Jewish cinema owner plotting her own revenge. Approximately 70% of the dialogue is in languages other than English. The opening scene, Landa interrogating a French dairy farmer, is what Tarantino calls his favorite thing he has ever written. Michael Fassbender was relatively unknown before the film launched his career. The Cannes premiere generated immediate Oscar buzz. Waltz won Best Supporting Actor, transforming from Austrian obscurity to international stardom overnight. The worldwide gross hit $321.5 million against a $70 million budget. More than 62% came from international markets. At 4.6 times its budget, Inglourious Basterds was enormously profitable. As one analysis noted, the war to prove Tarantino's box office viability had been firmly won. But, believe it or not, the next entry on our list makes everything before it look like a triumph. Death Proof is the one, the flop. The only Tarantino-directed film that genuinely lost money. And Tarantino himself has called it the worst movie he ever made. The concept seemed bulletproof on paper. Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez would co-direct a double-feature homage to 1970s exploitation cinema called Grindhouse. Rodriguez made Planet Terror. Tarantino made Death Proof, a slasher meets car chase hybrid starring Kurt Russell as a stuntman who uses his reinforced vehicle as a weapon. Fake trailers by Edgar Wright, Rob Zombie, and Eli Roth were sandwiched between the two films. The combined runtime exceeded 3 hours. Opening weekend was catastrophic. Grindhouse debuted to $11.5 million against studio predictions of $20 to $30 million. It fell below the second weekends of Blades of Glory and Meet the Robinsons. Many younger viewers did not understand the double feature format and walked out after Planet Terror ended, thinking the show was over. Tarantino later admitted the miscalculation. Me and Robert just felt that people had a little more of a concept of the history of double features. No, they didn't. At all. Death Proof grossed approximately $31 million worldwide on a $30 million production budget. Before marketing, before distribution fees, it did not come close to breaking even. Tarantino attended a London screening with Edgar Wright. The theater was nearly empty. Years later, he declared publicly, "Death Proof has got to be the worst movie I ever make. It shook my confidence to the core." The irony is that Cahiers du Cinema ranked it the second best film of 2007. And the climactic 20-minute car chase, with real stunt woman Zoe Bell clinging to a hood at highway speed, remains one of the greatest practical action sequences ever filmed. One flop in an otherwise extraordinary career, and the films that bookend it proved Tarantino could bounce back stronger than ever. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood represented a fundamental rupture. For the first time in his career, Tarantino was making a film without the Weinstein brothers. After the October 2017 allegations against Harvey Weinstein, Tarantino immediately severed ties. Multiple studios bid for his ninth film. Sony won by granting final cut privilege. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt each accepted $10 million below their usual rates to work with the director. The film also featured Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate, Al Pacino in a role written specifically for him, and Luke Perry in what became his final film appearance before his passing in March 2019. The Cannes premiere fell on the 25th anniversary of Pulp Fiction's debut at the same festival. It was a deliberate bookend. The film opened to $41.1 million domestically, Tarantino's highest opening weekend ever, though it debuted second behind The Lion King. In a summer dominated by superhero spectacle, an R-rated, nearly 3-hour, adult-oriented original proved audiences still existed. The financials were complicated. Production budget reached approximately $96 million. Marketing added another $110 million. Deadline estimated break-even at roughly $400 million. The theatrical gross of $377 to $392 million fell just short, though home video likely pushed it into profitability. Brad Pitt won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. The production design team also took home a statue. Tarantino later called it his favorite film he has made, but the box office crown belongs elsewhere. Django Unchained was not supposed to become Tarantino's biggest hit. It was a Western about slavery starring a German dentist and a freed bondsman hunting plantation owners in the antebellum South. On paper, that description sounds like a prestige limited release, not a global phenomenon. Development began in 2007 while Tarantino was writing about Sergio Corbucci, director of the original 1966 Django. Jamie Foxx took the lead after Will Smith passed. Christoph Waltz returned to win his second Tarantino Oscar. Leonardo DiCaprio played Calvin Candy, a plantation owner with a taste for brutal entertainment, marking one of his rare turns as an antagonist. Samuel L. Jackson delivered what many consider his most unsettling performance as the house slave Stephen. The most legendary production moment came during a dinner table scene. DiCaprio accidentally smashed a glass and sliced his hand open. Despite bleeding visibly, he stayed in character, even smearing blood on Kerry Washington's face. Tarantino kept the take. The crew gave a standing ovation. This was the first Tarantino film not edited by longtime collaborator Sally Menke, who had passed in 2010. The controversy was immense. Racial slurs appear over 110 times. Spike Lee publicly refused to see it, tweeting that American slavery was not a spaghetti western. Samuel L. Jackson memorably challenged a white interviewer to say the word before he would discuss it. None of it mattered commercially. Django Unchained grossed $425.4 million worldwide against a $100 million budget. It was, at the time, the highest-grossing Western in cinema history. Tarantino won his second Best Original Screenplay Oscar. He once said he wanted to win more original screenplay Oscars than anyone in history and have them renamed after him. At 4.25 times its budget, Django represented both commercial dominance and creative triumph. It proved that audiences would show up for challenging, provocative material if the craftsmanship was undeniable. 10 films, 9 successes, 1 spectacular disaster. Some used comedy, some used tragedy, some used swords, snow, and sprawling Los Angeles period detail. But every single one came from original screenplays. No sequels, no franchises, no adaptations of comic books or toy lines. Just a video store clerk from Manhattan Beach who turned residual checks and a borrowed rehearsal space into nearly $2 billion in cumulative worldwide gross. The industry has changed dramatically since Reservoir Dogs premiered in 1992. Theatrical windows have shortened. Streaming has transformed distribution. The mid-budget adult drama has become an endangered species. Yet Tarantino has continued to command A-list casts and studio resources for films that would never survive a corporate greenlight committee. Were his films lucky, or were they proof that audiences still crave original voices willing to take genuine risks? How many of these have you actually seen in theaters? And which box office results surprised you the most? If you made it this far, you clearly appreciate deep dives into the business behind the art, so hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more explorations of Hollywood's strangest success stories and spectacular failures. Because sometimes the best films are the ones nobody expected to work at all. See you in the next one.